When you think of catastrophes, natural disasters like hurricanes or earthquakes might come to mind. But what about an enormous flood of molasses? Yes, you heard that right. Molasses. This sticky, sugary substance caused havoc in Boston on a cold January day in 1919. Buckle up, because this story will transform how you view that innocent bottle of syrup in your pantry forever. Picture this. It's January 15th, 1919. Boston is alive with its usual winter hustle. The North End, a bustling working-class neighborhood, was home to Italian immigrants, factories, and cobblestone-tangled streets. At 529 Commercial Street stood an enormous storage tank, 50 feet tall and 90 feet wide. This steel colossus wasn't just any storage tank. It held 2.3 million gallons of molasses, waiting to be made into alcohol for the production of munitions. Remember, World War I had just ended, and industrial alcohol was a hot commodity. But here's where it gets chilling, literally. On that January day, temperatures barely scraped above freezing, and the tank, riddled with structural issues, had signs of trouble long before catastrophe struck. Built hastily in 1915, the tank groaned and leaked often, with observers noting dark, sticky streaks of molasses trailing down its sides. Kids from the neighborhood would bring pails to collect the sweet leakage, unknowingly playing with danger. At about 12:30 p.m., with a sound described as a thunderous roar followed by rapid gunfire cracks, disaster struck. The tank burst, unleashing a wave of molasses as tall as 25 feet, speeding through the streets at an astonishing 35 miles per hour. To put that into perspective, that's faster than a sprinting human. The sticky tsunami obliterated everything in its path. Buildings crumpled like toys. Horses and carts were swept away as if they weighed nothing, and unfortunately, lives were claimed. Imagine the scene. The streets, usually filled with the aroma of baked bread and sounds of distant chatter, turned into a sticky horror. Molasses that was meant for sweet treats became an agent of destruction. People were literally caught in its sticky grasp. Most couldn't outrun it, and once trapped, struggling only made things worse. Firefighters and police rushed to the site, but their efforts to rescue survivors were hindered, as they too became ensnared in the thick goop. First responders worked tirelessly, armed with gallons of salt water, in a desperate attempt to dilute the molasses. Echoes of cries for help resonated as rescuers waded neck-deep in the molasses, pulling out victims. Over 21 people lost their lives that day, and over 150 were injured. To put that chaos into human terms, imagine being inhaling molasses as it filled your lungs. Isn't it eerie how something we associate with pancakes and gingerbread could become so lethal? But maybe the most curious twist in this story happened after the flood itself. The cleanup operation across Boston's North End took weeks, and the impact persisted for decades. Crews sprayed salt water across the streets, and the molasses, warmed by the sun during the day, became a nightmare consistency. Stepping into the North End was like entering a giant flytrap. It wasn't just the physical residue that lingered. The entire area smelled sweet, and not in a pleasant way, for months. The disaster didn't merely end in Boston. The Great Molasses Flood, sometimes called the Boston Molassacre, sparked outrage and led to a massive investigation. Expert testimonies revealed that the tank had been poorly constructed, to the point where someone had painted it brown to hide its leaks. Can you imagine this level of negligence? The public was furious, and for the first time, questions were raised around industrial safety, corporate responsibility, and government oversight. It led to stricter regulations and building codes that many of us benefit from today. However, it wasn't just an engineering failure. The disaster also reflects a unique cultural moment. The tank was owned by the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, and at that time, industrialists shoved their commercial interests ahead of public safety. The tank was hurriedly erected because of the increasing demand for molasses during World War I. It also reminds us that the working-class residents of Boston's North End bore the brunt of callous capitalism. The Great Molasses Flood became a legal and political spectacle. The lawsuits filed against U.S. Industrial Alcohol Company revealed a laundry list of ignored warnings. Residents testified about the groaning noises the tank made before its collapse and the ominous leaks it had shown for years. Roughly 3 years of litigation followed, and even though the company was found liable, the heartache helped raise awareness of workers' and communities' rights. Today, as you stroll through Boston's North End, life appears serene, but traces of the past linger. Some older residents swear you can still catch a faint whiff of molasses on particularly hot days. Whether that's true or more of a ghost story, the Great Molasses Flood remains an extraordinary blend of science, industry, social justice, and quite literally, a sticky situation. Stories like the Great Molasses Flood show us that history is much more than dates and famous figures. It's a potpourri of human error, resilience, and the lessons that emerge from the unlikeliest of places. So next time you drizzle syrup on your pancake or stir it into your oatmeal, let your mind wander for a moment to that fateful day in Boston. Because who would have guessed that a sticky sweet substance could change life as we know it? The Great Molasses Flood, the day Boston was drenched in syrup. Now, there's a history lesson to remember. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more historical hidden gems. What peculiar tale will we unearth next? Stick around to find out. Ensure the expanded voiceover is even more entertaining, but that it maintains the same style, tone, and key points as the original.